Well, hi everybody, and welcome if you're new here. My name is Pam. I am so glad that you could all be here today. I know that our time is precious, and I want to say thank you for spending your time with me today. I really do appreciate that. But today's video, I want to start out by quoting James 1:12. And I love the book of James, but this verse here is beautiful. It says, "Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial. For when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him." Isn't that a beautiful promise from our Lord? So, today is really kind of a big deal. It's about current events, and this is so important. But first, I want to just mention what is going on with these meteors, right? We've had 4 of them in 1 week. And doesn't it just remind you of Revelation? Even though we're not there yet, it's kind of a reminder, isn't it? A foreshadow. But have you also noticed that there's been this weird, I think, concerted effort to divert our attention and hide what's really going on? And I do blame the enemy for this because he loves darkness. And this is kind of my thing lately, is this algorithm. I've noticed this, and I watch TikTok and YouTube and things like that, but I've noticed that almost every video that's suggested now has been things that I wouldn't normally watch, things to kind of occupy my mind or my time, divert my attention away from what's going on, because they're not informational videos anymore. They all seem to be things like, how to buy the best something or other, or how to save money, or how to do this or do that. But anything that keeps me, or even humor, anything that keeps me diverted. And that's made it difficult to really get information, don't you think? And I think that's what the enemy wants. He wants to keep us from actually knowing and seeing what's going on. So but today I'm going to hopefully shine some light on this subject. I want to talk about how everything happening right now could actually lead to the fulfillment of the book of Revelation, the whole book. That's my theory. So, and I want to remind you that some of this, of course, is speculation. These are based on some things that this could cause, or things that could happen, okay? So it doesn't mean that they will. But anyway, this one single man, is literally bringing the entire world to their knees in a variety of ways, but especially through deals, right? He's a big deal maker. And then, of course, you add to that his military force. So, and honestly, this fulfills Daniel. When Daniel kind of describes him as a deal maker. When you look at Daniel 8:23, he is the one who understands riddles. And in Daniel 11:27, he is portrayed as someone who will speak lies at the same table. He negotiates using lies and deceit. So, and then look at Daniel 9:27, right? When he confirms this covenant with the many, or, if he already did, if that's what it could have possibly happened with some of these things that he's done. The deal with Israel, the peace treaty that he's made, that's a deal. He's acting as a deal maker, right? So, and really, when you look at his portrayal in Revelation 6, he comes in on a white horse. He comes in, a lot of people believe peaceably. So he's making deals and covenants with people. But anyway, his ability to fill the shoes of a conqueror, it's been really apparent ever since he came on the scene. His wars, his political alignments, his agreements, tariffs, everything he's done has been all for the purposes of conquering. And now we have this war, which is significantly raising prices of oil and natural gas. And of course, we know that this is going to eventually lead to inflation, even stagflation in some countries, and maybe worldwide, and it could end in massive worldwide shortages, right? So his attitude, though, on Truth Social, he said the United States is the world's largest oil producer in the world. So when oil prices go up, we make a lot of money. So other than oil companies and his billionaire friends, I'm not sure who else is making a lot of money, but most of us are actually losing money at the gas pump and the grocery store. You know, it's getting to the point where it's harder and harder to survive. So his pride and greed and his sense of entitlement have led to demands for a new 3-year renewable memorandum of understanding, giving him a great deal of control over the world's second busiest waterway, the Panama Canal. And we all remember this. But according to National Defense Transportation Association, this agreement authorized U.S. armed forces to operate from Panamanian installations, giving U.S. warships access and priority passage. This agreement increased U.S. military presence and control over South America and shipping through the canal, which is a hub for liquefied natural gas, diesel, chemicals, and a variety of things, you know, even including fertilizers and things like that. But this is the question I'm posing here. If I wanted to control the world, what would I do? I would position myself in a way that gives me power and control over the world's governments, a position where people are forced to bow. Because they won't choose to, they need to be forced. So there's only one way in this, one thing in this entire world that every individual needs and depends on. That's oil and natural gas. That is the one thing. So everything in our world actually depends on these two fuels. Who has the largest oil reserves on Earth? According to Wikipedia, Venezuela has about 300 billion barrels of proven oil reserves. And if we take a look at the map, Venezuela also sits near the Panama Canal. But keep in mind here, the oil is not the only prize in capturing Venezuela. Okay, there's more to it than that, because they actually hold large reserves of rare earth minerals, things like bauxite, iron ore, and gold. And we know that he loves gold. But these are the very metals that are essential for defense systems, satellites, and next generation AI chips. Okay, so obtaining Venezuela not only gave him material and financial wealth, but also gave him control and dominance. Okay, and can you guess who over? China. Okay, because China, they previously dominated this space. And this made it a very strategic move for the U.S. to achieve global dominance over a very powerful foe. So our country's chokehold on Venezuela not only affected China, it also affected Cuba. Cuba is facing a severe energy crisis following the cutoff of subsidized oil shipments from Venezuela, which previously provided about half of the island's needs. And dominance over Cuba is really important for a few reasons, and most people don't realize this, that they're rich in very important natural resources. According to Wikipedia, Cuba has the second largest nickel reserves in the world after Russia. And it also ranks as the 5th largest producer of refined cobalt in the world. Cobalt and nickel are crucial for battery technologies, super alloys, and electronics, right? Which we all know that electronics are very important for our military and for Mark of the Beast technology. But not just those things, okay? Those are not the only important things with Cuba. Cuba is also strategically and geopolitically significant because of its location. It makes it kind of a critical maritime bottleneck and a geopolitical focal point because it's just 90 miles from Florida. So it controls key shipping lanes and directly impacts U.S. security. So if you're planning to create an empire, you need to secure the waterways, you need these resources. And, you know, this prevents nations from potentially threatening us. It makes it easier for him to reign in security, I guess. But how does Iran fit into the scheme of things? According to Wikipedia, Iran has 10% of the world's proven oil reserves and 15% of gas reserves. It is rated in the top 5 of the world's richest nations ranked by natural resources. It also wields the power of a very effective and powerful diplomatic weapon, OPEC. As a founding member of OPEC and the 4th largest producer in the group, Iran influences OPEC primarily through controlling its vast oil reserves. Imagine, though, ruling OPEC, owning Iran's oil, and all while wielding the power over the Strait of Hormuz. And, you know, this power over the Strait of Hormuz would also give him power over the world, but especially Europe and Asian nations. According to the World Economic Forum, it's the main shipping route for all oil coming out of the Middle East, which is, most of which is actually transported to Europe and Asian countries. It also carries 20% of the world's liquefied natural gas for power generation, heating, and cooking. And shortages in LNG can have deadly consequences throughout the healthcare industry. Think about what this could do. You know, when you don't have power and you don't have, you know, those things to keep people alive, to operate, to, you know, provide oxygen, whatever it is that needs to be done in a healthcare setting. And it would shutter manufacturing, which it is already impacting manufacturing in some of these countries, and leave some people, and many people, without possibly electricity or without the ability to cook their food or store their food, and just a variety of issues like that. But according to Bloomberg, since this began, LNG prices have roughly doubled in Asia and the European Union. Okay, and this will actually end up leading to global shortages and price increases if this continues. It's already starting to do that. Okay, so according to the Council on Foreign Relations, China imports the most oil of anyone in the entire world. And now that they're no longer to import this oil from Iran and Venezuela, they've attempted to secure oil elsewhere, as in Russia, which is giving Russia money. So shortages have caused these price spikes and led to China decreasing their exports of oil, okay? Which has actually led to further tightening of the world's oil supply. So other major Asian economies like Japan, Singapore, Taiwan, South Korea, India, and Thailand are almost completely dependent on foreign oil. In 2024 alone, 84% of the oil and 83% of liquid natural gas shipped through the Strait of Hormuz and was bound for Asia. So many Asian states could run out of oil very soon. But this is all actually to his advantage, isn't it? Because these shortages, they've actually increased oil and gas exports from the U.S., increasing his wealth and his billionaire friends' wealth, right? So, and the hard part is he's increasing their wealth, and all the while, though, he is increasing poverty throughout the world, and he is increasing food insecurity. So, because, all of this is going to actually eventually is going to cause these shortages, and the exact scenario that you see in the book of Revelation, it could lead to all of these things. So according to the CFR, the Council on Foreign Relations, many countries are already rationing fuel and directing limited fuel supplies to essential locations like hospitals, factories in the region's export-dependent economies are shuttering or operating part-time. Now that's going to impact the U.S. economy. There's no way. This is the thing. We have a global economy. The oil market is global, okay? So this is going to impact our global economy. And, as you see, the U.S. now is in dire straits. We are actually paying out more than what we're taking in, right? If you've seen the videos about that. And yesterday I heard that there's a possibility that the Houthis in Yemen that are backed by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps could soon become involved in this war by closing the Strait of Bab el-Mandeb. I hope I pronounced that right. I don't really know. It's a strait that is involved in quite a bit of shipping. And this would further chip away at the world supply chain and economy, creating an even more serious and dire situation for the world's economies and for citizens, individual citizens, So this could potentially be a very serious situation. And like I said, this could lead to the fulfillment of the entire book of Revelation. Seriously. And that is a crazy thought, that the deal maker is actually going to use all of this possibly to control the entire world. And, anyway, I know it's a lot, but, this is what's happening. This is what's happening. And if it continues, this is where it could go. So if he is the one, right? So anyways, I will see you guys next week. I'll be back next week with a study on the next church of Revelation. And then if you have anything that you want to add to this, feel free. I'm always interested in new news articles or, a different biblical perspective about these things. But other than that, I hope you all have a great weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye.